All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're right at time, maybe a minute over. How was lunch? Good? Okay. Folks enjoying the conference so far? Okay, well, just get ready. Just get ready. And so my name is Pascale Leone. I'm the executive director here at the network, and I'm so pleased and honored to be here with a friend, and so I'm really just here to introduce my good sister, Regina. And I'm privileged to say that I've known this incredible human being for about 10 years now. And when I say she is one of the most genuine and authentic people who really walks the talk, I mean it. I don't think I know anyone more genuine and more authentic than Regina, particularly in this work. And I just have to remind myself, when we first met, we were both working at CSH. We were doing a training. We had not met with it. We were fairly new, and we were in Orlando. And we were doing training on Development 101 for supportive housing, and we had like a later flight. So we were just, conversing, us and another woman named Kim Walker, for hours, really talking about what we should be talking about, right? That the inequities and the disparities we see in the homelessness continuum is not by accident, it's not a coincidence, right? These things are by design, right? And if we're not talking about how we center the racialized inequities in this work, what are we talking about, right? If we're not talking about the transfer of power and resources, what are we talking about, right? And, we had a lot of conversations about getting at the root of these racialized inequities, and it was from that we then, maybe fast forward 3 or 4 years later, convened a meeting, in-person meeting invited all our staff to start talking about how is the issue of race and racism coming up in your conversations and working in community. And everyone came. And Regina blew us away and really led the movement at our previous organization, at CSH, to center equity in our work before 2020. This was like 2017, 2016. Right? And it's because of Regina's leadership that CSH is proud to call itself an organization that is endeavoring to be an anti-racist organization. It is because of Regina's leadership that I stepped into the role at that organization as the VP of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, a job that was really meant for her, but that she was on to bigger and better things. But it's because of her that we were able to do transformative work at that organization, really working from the margins, right? Because that's how we get free. As the elder ancestor Bell Hooks said, right? If we don't do our work by the margins, we will not get free. Again, because our work, our liberation is intrinsically entwined with one another. And she had walked my hand through the work, cried with me, prayed with me, and always a phone call away. And so I'm just here to give this Black woman her flowers. And thank you for being a friend and inspiration, and really a leader in what it means to do transformative justice work. And so I just want to say thank you. All right, I'm not getting emotional. And so when we talked about, we were thinking about this session, and then she was at CSH, and she had a slide that said, transformation happens in the deep end. I said, yes. Yes. And so we have to talk about that. And we were talking how a lot of this work, we're past 2020, right? We're in 2023, and we're seeing, the window, someone said the window for DEI work is slowly closing, right? We're seeing a white lash that we're seeing in a lot of ways, and really targeting oppressed and minoritized organizations and people and groups in this work, whether it be bans on books, bans on trans people, bans, who's next, right? We know what's coming, right? This is a backlash to what we saw in terms of the latent economic and racial justice reckonings of 2020. But a lot came out of that, right? There were a lot of organizations who endeavored to be anti-racist, who want to center equity. And a lot of that work was performative. A lot of that work was transactional. A lot of that work was transformative, right? But how do we have the wisdom and the serenity to know the difference? And we understand some of this work will be transactional. Setting up a DEI committee or collecting data, this might seem transactional, but it could lead to profound difference on the way you use that data, how you collect it to really impact change. Don't just stay there, right? Go in the deep end. And so that's what we wanted to talk about, to really challenge folks to go beyond some of the binary thinking that we've been believed to think, of the either or, and how we have to show up in this work. And really to address for the root causes, right? And not just tinker around the edges, right? And so with that, I will gladly get off the stage and give it over to my good sister, but I just wanted to make sure I gave her her just flowers. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not exactly who she was talking about. No. No, Pascale is my sister and my friend.
Always.
So we are here in this together. You know when she said it's about showing up in different ways? So I'm going to show up in a little bit different way today. And so... Oh, yeah. If I go on the stage, so you might as well just move a little bit. Who wants to just go? I'm talking about, right? Go ahead and get your joy on, because the work that we do every day, it'll take you down, but we refuse to go down, right? All right then, let's get this thing going. All right. So the question will be, can we actually get back to our yes? Okay. And so it's a pleasure to be with you again. As Pascale said, I'm Regina Cannon, the president and CEO of ARC4Justice, because what? We're trying to bend the arc toward justice, right? The moral arc of the universe may be long, y'all, all right, but it's bending toward justice. But here's the thing, it does not bend alone, right? And so each one of us has to figure out how are we going to help bend that thing. Sometimes you got to jump on top of it, right, up and down. Sometimes you got to pull it down. Sometimes you got to like whip it around, right? But it's got to bend, okay? And so that's the work that we do at ARC4Justice. And so today we're going to have a good time with you all. And I hope that you came to be a part of this, because this is not a presentation, right? This is a conversation. So we're going to have a little fun today. We're going to talk about yesterday, today, tomorrow, right? How did we get here, right? What are we doing in this moment? And where do we want to go, right? So we're going to touch on that in some different ways. So let's see what we can pull together here. So I know you're thinking, well, I'll just be doggone. We got a pop quiz, right? Yeah. So here's the thing. Do you all remember way back in the third, fourth grade, something like that, maybe even earlier, when you were learning about comparative and superlative, right? Okay. And so I'm going to ask you all to fill in the blanks, right? You got to call them out, right? And so when you say tall, what's the next one? Taller. I love it. Somebody say short. Yeah. Okay. And? All right. Okay. We remember. It's been a while, but we remember. Okay. So we got big. Bigger. And? Biggest. Okay. So we got bad. This is a trick one. Yeah. See, caught some of y'all sleeping. Y'all like batter, Okay, and? Oh, wait, no. Okay, sorry. You're right. Sorry about that. My bad. Okay. Let's try it again. Okay. This is another trick one, though. So before you say something, right, think about it now. Okay, so good. Better. Okay, and? Best. Well, see, here's the thing. That one had more than just the superlative, right? They didn't teach us that in school. They don't teach us a lot in school, right? Okay, but we're not going to go there. So there was good, and there was better, and best, but then there's also necessary. That was that fourth one that they didn't teach us, right? You remember how, they would pat us on the head, well, baby, as long as you did your best. Best is not going to get us to justice. Necessary gets us to justice, okay? So we want to think a little bit about Like why it is that we've got to do, our best all the time. Now, a lot of times people don't believe me, okay? And so I said, well, like, who said that, like, sometimes the best isn't good enough? I said, oh, my goodness, wait. Right? Could we go past best and get this thing right? So y'all ready to go on this journey? Let's figure out what that could look like, right? And so think about this, right? The yesterday. So we've had all kinds of plans. I bet some of you all are using those as like to hold the door down, right? As bookmarkers, right? Blue ribbon, commissions, all the things, and we were all so happy to be called to be on a blue ribbon panel, to sit there with a lot of muckety mucks and do absolutely nothing. It was wonderful, yes, but they had good food. Mm-hmm. And so we have all of these different plans and all, and yet we keep circling back, right? And so I think that we need to get to necessary. So we need to go deeper, we need to go wider, and we need to go together. Okay? So let's go deeper. So here's the thing, y'all. We're sometimes we feel like that we're fighting against the currents, right? And we're swimming against the tides and all. And sometimes we don't even know, right? The things that we should be fighting against because we're swimming in it, and sometimes it becomes invisible because it becomes the norm, right? The inequities, the disproportionalities become the norm, and we just sort of sit and swim in it, right? And so we need to start thinking about how do we make the invisible visible, right? So one of the things that we've got to make sure that we never leave out, and that is the influence, right, of race and ethnicity. Because, see, race is still, unfortunately, a leading predictor of every social inequity, right? Which includes, of course, housing stability outcomes. So if it's still a leading predictor, that means that we've got to go deep in it, right? We can't just go across the surface and say, well, here are some numbers for you. No, we got to figure out, well, what do we do to change those numbers, right? And so if race is still a predictor, then white supremacy is still reigning. Yeah, right? And I know sometimes the word sounds harsh, right? But white supremacy ideology is a real thing, yeah? And so if we are saying that is also still, right, reigning supreme, as it were, then we're going to have to figure out how do we begin to pull it apart, right? How do we begin to go deeper and really look at the structures, right, that white supremacy as an ideology, right, as a system has put together, okay? And so one of the things that we think about when we're thinking about this sort of white supremacy culture and how it shows itself, one of the ways that it shows itself is it pushes us into a corner, and it likes to make us think that we've only got one of two choices, either or. And that's not true. See, because the world is bigger than that. Y'all remember, right? The blue pill, you remember, right? I believe, right, that not only are there just sort of the quote shades of gray in between the either or, but there are shades of color. Yeah? And so I want to play today in the shades of color, right? Because that's a false dilemma. That's false, that either or. That they're pushing us into a corner, you know? And one place that it shows itself is in the work that we try to do, right, every day around becoming more anti-racist organizations, right? And so you've got some folks who say, well, you know, that DEI stuff, well, that's just weak. We are hardcore anti-racism. Again, it's not an either or. It's just not, right? What if we thought about it as a continuum? Yes, that the DEI actually helps us to build some foundations. It helps us to become more aware, right, of what's going on around us, right? So let's not poo-poo it, right, but use it, milk it for what it's worth, understanding that can be a stepping stone to doing more anti-racist work, right? And then let's not sit there. Don't sort of pat yourself on the back and say, woo, we're doing some anti-racism. No, because the goal is collective liberation. Wait a minute. Nobody in here wants to be free? Does anybody want to be free? Yes. Okay, I'm just checking. Because that's right where we're going. And when we talk about that collective liberation, right, and people truly are self-autonomous, right, self-determining, have their own self-agency, there are not so many barriers to what people are actually needing in their lives, the resources that are needed, that we're not having to all the time go and stand up and protest, right? Yeah, and sort of and boycott and all, right? That's when we all get free, when we get there, right? And so the work that we do is on the way to that, okay? And so again, it's a continuum, not an either or, right? It's more of a both and, right? And so when we think about that in our work, let's see if we can go deeper there, right? You see, the surface part, that either or on that side, is the housing with minimal supports, if any. That's just some surface stuff. Because you see, we've decided that it's okay, right, that some folks just get 4 walls and maybe a ceiling. That's what society has decided. The folks that have the resources and are allocating those resources, that's what they decided, that some people just don't have enough value. So if we can just get some 4 walls and a roof, you ought to just be grateful for that, right? That's what they told us, yeah. I say no, go deeper. Because see, here's the thing. A house, a unit, the 4 walls and all, that's not a home, right? So I want you all to stop and think for a moment, and I want you to just call them out. Just call them out. What are the things that make where you live, right, a home? What makes you say, feels good to be here, right, at home? Just call them out to me. What does that look like? Love. Friends. Your bed, your health. What else? Somebody said their cat. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, your cat, your dog. Peace, safety. Yes. Well, if we need all of those things to call home, then we've got to fight and make sure that our neighbors, right, that are unhoused, right, that are not getting supports, that they have all of those things that we just named, right? So we got to go deeper, right? So we've got to make sure that we are talking with, that we are merging with those around quality health care, right? Growth opportunities, right? Just like we are here today, learning from each other, learning and sharing, yeah, everybody else wants to do that too, right? Economic stability, right? That check in the mail, right, with some, government signature on it, that's not enough, right? And then they put a limit on that. Like, so if you get this check, for $763.24, well, you can't make but $600 more. So reinforcing, right, a group that is always in poverty, right? We push back against that, and I know that you've already pushed back against that, right? You talked about friends and love and peace, so community connectedness, right? So it's not just enough for those 4 walls. And then think about it, go deeper. Self-determination, right? Power. Let me just stop there for a moment. Power is not a bad word. And I know that sometimes, especially in our sector, right, because we're our folks that are social servants, right? And we sort of pull back from power. I want power and I want a lot of it. Yeah, I said it, yeah. Because, see, it is about who's holding the power and what you do with the power, right? And so I would encourage us to step into our power, right, to reclaim it everywhere that we can, right? And then going a little bit deeper, it is about belonging. How often, right, do we see the rest of society otherizing our unhoused neighbors? Like, How dare they? Like them over there, right? As though there's some condition, right, that we need to keep, you know. We fight against folks that are unhoused more than we fought against COVID. Mm-hmm. And see, so COVID was sort of time limited. I don't know. I still take my mask, but our unhoused neighbors, we keep fighting. We have fought against making sure that everyone has a quality, safe place in communities where they feel connected, right? And so that sense of belonging, right? And then, of course, ultimately, liberation, right? That sense that I determine my path, right? And so that's why I say to us, we got to go deeper, right? We can't stay at that surface level of the four walls and the ceiling, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about some of those a little bit more. You see, the opposite of othering is not saming, right? It's not about everybody being the same, doing the same, thinking the same, having the same culture, all of those. No. But rather about belonging. That is about saying that everyone should be included in the circle of human concern, right? And so how do we keep extending that? Why should we only have concern for some groups of people, right, that we deem are valued enough to have that, right? Everybody should be a part of that circle of human concern, right? Any human to another, that Countee Cullen said, yes? So see, this is, I know that this is the kind of society that everybody in this room is working for, right? And we've got to keep pushing that in the rest of society. Everywhere we go, whether or not we're building movements or advocating, that everybody belongs, okay? Now, I know, well, you know what, let me just ask. I don't want to make assumptions. How many folks here have gone through social work school or sociology or psychology? I just didn't want to assume. How many of you all learned and could say by heart, if I covered it up, you could say by heart Maslow's hierarchy? So I have 3 words for you. Pascale, where's the exit? Because I may have to run. Let it go. Let it go. So this is. Think about this for a moment. We're saying, right, that you gotta have, shelter, right, and then and only then if you have shelter. And only then, right, if you have it, then we can have love. How for 30 years have we accepted that? What kind of frackle-knackle is that? Oh, that's Southern speak. I actually just cursed, yeah. Why is it that we don't understand that we need all of it? Right? We need all of it at once, right? That we should not be waiting, right? Well, let me see if I can get somebody a quote unit, right? And then we're going to think about, something like it's these steps and all. And so only if I have every single thing that I need and I have all the resources, only then can I be self-actualized. And we sat up there and put that on our exams and happy that we made like 100 on the test. Let it go. Right? Challenge it, critique it. Because we shouldn't be telling people that you got to have this to have a little love and belonging, right? To have some esteem, to be all that you can be. No. So again, challenging a few things. We're going deeper, right? And if we're going deeper, then we've got to interrogate power. We got to interrogate power. So you know how investigative journalists, they have like their 5 whys and all the things. Okay, so I just added like 1 H. But so you got who, when, why, what, how, where. So we need to be asking, right? Everything that we do, we're interrogating this power. And so I'm going to indulge myself. This is complete and total indulgement.
2 Virginians and an immigrant walk into a room diametrically opposed foes. They emerged with a compromise, having opened doors that were previously closed. The immigrant emerges with unprecedented financial power, a system he can shape however he wants. The Virginians emerge with the nation's capital. And here's the pièce de résistance. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens.
So thank you. I can't get enough. But if we are not in the room where it happens, right, if we're not interrogating power, if we're not interrogating where those decisions are made, right, where the allocations, whether all of those decisions are power, right? So we say that power is defined as the ability to direct laws, policies, investments that shape people's lives. Let's break it down. It also includes the ability to make decisions, set deadlines, allocate work, delegate, recruit, promote, right? Disagree or agree with somebody or some things or legislation without fear of personal repercussions, right? So you see, power is expansive. So we've got to interrogate that because we all may hold a little bit of power, right? And so we need to make sure that our collective power is moving toward justice, right? And that means that we're all sitting in the room, right, where those decisions are made, or as he said, where the sausage is made, right? So interrogate that power, right? Because see, here's the thing, power shows up in a lot of different places, yeah? Look at all the places that it shows up. So every time that it comes, we've got to interrogate that, right? In our cultural norms, right? Whether it's in an organization, an association, right? In the privileges that we have, right? The things that we can gatekeep on, our narratives. What stories go out about whom, right? Are they from a deficit model or from a strength base? Y'all, that's power, right? Narratives are power, right? And so that's why we have to interrogate this power and make sure that we're understanding when we have power over folks or whether we are power with and sharing power, and how are we pushing our legislators, our council folks, right, to have power with us, right? Because we only do direct action, right, when they refuse to negotiate with us, right? Remember what Dr. King said? I'll only protest or boycott if you leave the negotiating table, but when you leave the negotiating table, then we will have some direct action, right? And so what we're trying to do is to move, right, our folks who are sitting in places of power to share it, yes? And so because that's moving us toward justice, right? And so you think about all the places that power are held within an organization, right? Whether it's in individual roles, individual people. You think of where that it's held throughout the housing response system, right? And, of course, in philanthropy. And so let's talk for a moment. Where else do you see power showing up, right? And in whose power is being diminished and in what ways? Y'all talk to me. Who's not having enough power, right? Whose power is being diminished?
Working class.
Working class, right? Yes, who else? Whose power is being diminished every day?
The population we serve.
Population that you serve. Exactly. When you've got some folks in power holding on to the resources, right? Because here's the thing, don't be fooled by the scarcity model. We, right, this country, we have always put money where we wanted to put money, where we thought, right? It is a reflection of our values, right? And so if we say that we don't have enough funding in supportive housing network, it is because there are not enough people that are in power holding that money that believe that it is of value, right? And so that power is being constantly diminished. Where else? Where else do we see the power being diminished over and over? It's okay, speak it out. Healthcare. Exactly, right? Anytime that we are not making sure that people not only just have access to, but actually have quality healthcare, right? We are diminishing their power to be all that they could be, right? So we could go on, and so that's why I want you to interrogate this thing called power, this ability to make decisions about other people's lives, right? And so when we think about, and I love this quote, Ron Chisholm's from the People Institute. He said, poor black and brown and native people don't need programming, y'all. They need their power back, right? We're not going to program our way out of this, right? It's got to be programs and, right, all of the things that give people their power, right? And so these are the things that we look at when we talk about that shared power, okay? The impact of it that gives us more relational kind of culture, right? And so that it's not a command and control. What else do we need, right, when we go deeper? If we really, really want people to feel as though they belong, we need a little bit of culture humility. Now, what do we mean by this? So many of you all have been practicing culture humility. How many folks have taken a class in culture humility? So a good many of you, right? So let's just take a guess. How many people think that your council folks, your legislators have taken a course? But see, here's the problem with that. You see, culture humility says it's not about just sitting and saying, well, I'll listen to anyone's experiences and their backgrounds and, maybe do a little bit of reading about their culture. Culture humility starts right here. It says, what assumptions, what stereotypes, what am I holding, right? What's the biased earwax that I have that I need to clean out, right? And so those folks that are in power got a lot of biased earwax, right? Because for whatever reason, they're holding some assumptions about our unhoused neighbors, right? They're holding some stereotypes, right? They're holding some misguided values, right? And so they need to understand a little bit of culture humility as well, yeah? And then go deeper. Trauma-informed, healing-centered. How many of you all have been trained in trauma-informed work? Pretty good many. I love this, yes. How many have been trained in healing-centered work? Yeah. Not so many, right? So here's the thing, yes. If we're going to go into the trauma in which so many of the folks that we serve walk in with and that we hold, let's be clear about something. It's not just secondary trauma. We too are experiencing it in our own ways, right, in our own lives, right? And then the people that we serve are experiencing that trauma, right? And so we've got to have a place that we can heal, right? So we need an environment. Those of us who are practitioners, who are providers, need healing as well, right? Because see, here's the thing, right? You cannot get water from an empty well, right? And so the healing has to be both for us and for the people that we serve, right? Because see, we have to go deeper, right? We don't want to stop with trauma-informed. We want to continue to healing-centered. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And then we're going to have to go deeper, y'all. We're going to have to change some narratives. Maybe I just let this one sit there. You see, here's the thing. When we go to the philanthropists and we go to all of our funders, and again, some of them are on their journey, and God love them like a play sister. But there's this notion that, well, they got to decide if they're going to help us, if this falls into one of their focus areas, right? And so we're there, and almost sort of just begging for crumbs, right? Because we care and we love so much, right? The folks that we're trying to be of support to. But see, the narrative that we've got to start pushing is that I don't want your charity. I want justice. That was hard, wasn't it? Because I know some of you all in here are EDs and you're like, well, You can say that if you want, but I'm going to need this money. Mm-hmm. I understand. I'm there with you. I understand. But we've got to begin to change that story, right? That it is not about some people over here deciding that these people over here, well, maybe they're good enough on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we're going to give them a little piece of money, and then we're going to make all of y'all jump through hoops, fill out 10,000 reports for that $2.50. See, that is charity, you know? And so, and it's not that we don't need a charitable mindset and charitable hearts. Don't get me wrong. We want that, charitable minds, charitable, being able to be generous, right? You know, and compassionate, right? But the resources you provide ought not be charity. It ought to be a way of moving toward justice, right? And so we that's going deeper, changing the narrative, right? Let me just pause there. Pascale, I need people to talk. What do folks think about what we've talked about so far? How are you feeling about the go deeper part? Any comments about going deeper, challenging narratives, healing center? Talk to us.
When I think about going deeper, I can't help but think about how a lot of the funders or the people that we rely on in the system, they rely on us to sanitize their reputations and allow them to keep doing what they're doing, which creates all the problems that we have in the first place. So I think we really need to rethink the whole nonprofit industrial complex, not just rethink, just take it down.
This is a great conversation. Going deeper makes me think about election season and the shaking hands and kissing babies and how the rest of the year we don't see these people and, you know, nothing really gets done and it's the same problem year after year. We have to go deeper and we have to really think about why things are not changing, why some communities still look the same for 50 years.
Boom. Yes. Don't come to my church the Sunday before the Tuesday election, right? And talk about, oh, I'm going to do everything for you, and then nothing happens, right? Go deeper, right? How do I hold you accountable for what you say, or either yank your behind back out? Go deeper. Yeah.
So kind of to the point of what everybody else was saying, going deeper makes me think of a local official who shall remain nameless, who we went to for some funding in the thick of the pandemic and, you know, won't, whatever, until I got the phone call asking for services for a family member of theirs that all of a sudden was diagnosed with a mental health problem. And, you know, my first reaction was, well, no, but... You know, but then I said, you don't punish the person for the ignorance of the other, but it gave me the opportunity to say to this person, you know, you see now why I was asking, but now that it's in your house, now it's a different story.
There you go. Okay? Why is it that we got to wait, right? Why do they have to wait till it touches them personally, as though we can't see, right, what's happening to other folks, right? Come on now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Mack. I am a minority, and the question I want to ask is, how do we work with you instead of for you?
There we go, y'all. That's about changing the power dynamics, right? Here's the thing, and I want to pull together something that all three of you all have just said. When we talk about working with instead of for, so there's a book. The name of the book is called They Can't Kill Us All. They can't fire us all, right? And so if, and I know that you've done it because I keep up with what you're doing, if we can stay in coalition, if we can find those 2 or 3 things that we can all agree to in the network, and then we make that first, we make the request, right? And till you're feeling good, make it again, right? But if it's to buy it again, then it becomes a demand, right? Because see, here's what happens, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But what happens is that our compassion is weaponized against us. Because what they think is that because of who we are, right, in this field, in this sector, is that we will not walk away. Now, you all have already shown that it may not be true all the time, right? So we need to make sure that they understand, right, that we are a collective, that we do have power, and we are saying that we're going to work with you in this way. Now, then we're going to define what with looks like. So with looks like that I'm going to be part of your decision-making, your platform, your agenda. I'm going to hold you to account, right, of what you say that you're going to do. And then we're going to publicize it, right, when you don't, right? So those are the steps that we think about when we start to change the power dynamics from working for you to with you. Yeah. All right. Oh, I'm loving this. Come on. Who else? Go deeper. Go deeper for us. Pascale, give me in those steps today. She's like,
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Ebony Frazier. Go deeper as in, why is that gentleman at the highway panhandling, and when he goes into the shelter system, he's shunned? Personal experience.
you think about that, right? We say, right, that we're building these places and that everyone is welcome, yes? But then we start playing some kind of little power game too, right? We start picking and choosing, right, on who gets to stay and who gets kicked out, right? We have some of our own work to do. Like that's our dirty little secret. Because for the most part, we're like this amazing group, right? Incredibly compassionate. This is our work. And sometimes we got a little bit of some in us too, right? And so we need to figure out what those things are and why they exist, right? And so for an instance like that, part of that is even changing a rule. There should never be any one person that can decide what happens to another. That needs to be a group. Because if one person's buying season all come through, the other two are there to catch it. Yeah. Come on.
I wasn't gonna say it, but you pulled it out of me. I think, like being in this social workspace, social services. I've seen, and even in general in public, there's just this deep mistrust for many people. And most times it's, poor people and, the homeless population. And I think we never address that mistrust we have, which is born out of, the society that was created. But I think it's up to us to, really address that, approach that, do some of that healing within ourselves, as well as many hours, just unlearning, constant unlearning, and relearning, and I think that's important for everyone.
Oh my gosh, unlearning, right? We've got to unlearn. But see, here's the thing, y'all. We were all socialized in the same ways, right? As all of the folks that we talk about that are, power hungry, keeping all the resources. We were socialized in those ways. We were socialized with the same narratives, with the same stereotypes. Come on, y'all. Y'all know how many times that you have seen on TV or right on the media, and maybe even saying they're talking about the welfare queens, or this or that person trying to get over, trying to work the system, all of those. We were socialized in that too, so we have to have an intentionality, right, to move away from those things, right? So we got some stuff to unlearn because we were all socialized in the same ways. And so we got to do our work too. That's right, brother. Yes, thank you.
Thinking about Go Deeper makes me think about taking, when I took my low-income housing tax credit course and seeing that there are restrictions around education, that you can't go to school full-time, that you can't engage in certain upward mobility tactics and still be qualified for that tax credit break?
Well, of course not. Because we need to make sure that we keep a group of folks in poverty, right? Because that's how abusive capitalism works, right? How about that? So we put in all of those restrictions, right? And here's the thing. If we were just to read those and look at them and they were like, oh, well, I guess that's like okay, right? But we have to challenge that and interrogate it. Who's being left out because of your arbitrary rules, right? And here's the thing, and I hate to say this because it's by design. It's intentional, right? So we have to pull the cover and say, so why? Every single restriction that is there, to say, why is it there? Right? Give me an impact assessment on it. Who is this harming and who is it benefiting, right? And to keep challenging every single one of those restrictions because they're there by design. Yes.
In going deeper, when you think of people who has mental health, when they need to recertify certain recertification for health, for benefits, why does the government think that the person who has mental health has to, they have to fill out papers or receive phone calls, in order for their benefits to be recertified? If the person has mental health, obviously, it's very difficult for them to make these phone calls or even be present for them to contact them for the interview. So stuff like that just doesn't make sense. I mean, what do they expect? So what ends up happening is that many of them doesn't have the services, or they end up going about with no benefits. They can't buy food, they can't buy this because, it just doesn't make sense.
Let's say it again together. By design. So think about this. And if I had time, I would actually walk you through some of the policies and the discussions that go on, right, in each one of those finance committees, right? So going all the way back decades and decades, people began to think about how can we do two things? How can we say to the public, right, and to larger society and even other countries that we are a caring nation, right, and we care about mental health, and at the same time make it as hard to get so we don't have to spend money on it? They're actually recorded discussions because it's by design. So part of that, right, is to create so much bureaucracy, right, that we really don't have to spend money on it. But we can say that the program is there because then we can turn it and say, you see, we want to care for everybody, right? And so see, power wants to have it both ways, which is why we've got to uncover it. Yeah, thank you. One more, and then we're going to go wider. Two more, absolutely.
So one thing I've struggled with in my job is, like, in our office, we have a bell that gets rung every time, someone signs a lease. And that's a good thing. I mean, it's important. But, we're so focused on the individual, when we get them into a place, that line just never stops. So, how do we just clear out the line?
Oh my gosh. We're gonna just touch a minute, because that's what we're gonna talk about when we say go wider, right? Because part of the work, you all unfortunately, and I know this, that every position, every job, I know how hard you're working and how overworked you are and all, but you all will have to do two things. We're going to have to continue to address the crisis in front of us, individual by individual, but we're going to also have to look systemically, right? And talk about how do we begin to change the things that are creating conditions for more and more individuals to come in, right? How to start getting into some root cause work, right? And that's a different kind of work, but we have to go there. Because to your point, the line will get longer and longer. So we're going to have to hold both. We're going to have to hold both at once, right? And so part of our work is to figure out how do we do that, right? So in partnership, all the different ways, but we got to hold both.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's impossible to have any humanization in a system that requires profit at any cost.
So think about that. There was a time when I would actually say things like, oh, well, I guess I sort of believe, in capitalism because, like if you got the goods and you can sell. When you know the history on which capitalism was built, right? The exploitation, the extraction, you're like, hold up, right? If, in fact, that the very system itself was built on stolen labor, was built on violence, then we have to begin to interrogate, right? How do we take a system that was built that way and try to figure out how to get humanity out of it? And y'all, that's life's work. Many lives and lives and generations of work. You're absolutely right. Because that's what it was built on, in humanity.
I just wanted to touch base on when we talk about how things are designed to just stay how they are. You think about telling your children, go to school, get a college education, do this, do that. But then unfortunately, I have a friend who does not go to school, who is receiving services, but can get everything in the book. But the child you put in school can't even get can't get food stamps, can't get financial aid. They can't get anything because they so-called don't have any dependents. So you're really talking about keeping people where they are and not really helping those who you want to say, this is the right thing to do. What's the right thing to do when I can't get any services? How do you encourage those folks?
Because see, that is where we have so failed ourselves and our children, right? Because yes, right, we talk about, education, that being the way out of poverty and all, but then people get stuck and they can't get ahead and they're like, wait a minute, but I'm looking over here and all. Here's the thing, y'all. We're fighting for the crumbs. Right? That should never be a debate. People need to have what they need to do what they want to in life. So while we're over here fighting about, okay, well that person, they're getting wicked, this, getting that, and this person, they went to school and that's a fight we ought not be having. Right? Because what does it do? It divides us. And that's what power wants, to divide and conquer us so they can keep us fighting over those two little while they eat the whole pie. So I push back on those, even having those conversations and say, well, wait a minute, can we talk about how we all get what we need in whatever ways that comes about, right? And I know it's not easy. I know that's not easy, right? But can we start having that conversation, because as long as we are fighting with each other, here we are. We're going to say we'll be here again, same thing 10 years from now, and I refuse. Y'all, I'm from the deep, deep, deep South. Deep South of Mississippi. All I know in me is to fight, right? So see, I'm not going to be in this place 10 years from now, right? Because we'll have been that justice, that arc toward justice just a little bit more, right? So we're going to fight about how we come together, right? And we're going to talk about this thing called going a little bit wider. So, see, this little bitty narrow slice, we talk about the disproportionateness in experience of housing stability and housing without supports, or the disproportionality, for black and brown folks and homelessness. That's narrow. That's narrow. That's a narrow way of thinking about it. A wider way to think about this is, what are the causes? What are the root causes of those things, right? When are we talking about the low wages and high housing costs and how our electeds continue to allow high-rises, luxury apartments to be built, right? That only 2 people can afford, right? When are we going to really, really talk about gentrification, right, and displacement, right? When are we going to really, really talk about the higher eviction rates, right, in some of our communities? Are we going to talk about the racialized zoning ordinances? You know those zoning ordinances that seem just so innocuous. It's like, well, we're going to have this zoning, and we can only have, certain lot sizes, or we can only have this kind of. Y'all know what they're doing.
They don't want y'all in their neighborhood. So when are we going to talk about that, right? When are we going to talk about the anti-immigration policies, right? When are we going to talk about that, right? Because, see, we got to widen the conversation. When are we going to talk about all of the vestiges from segregation and redlining? Yeah. You see, here's the thing with the segregation and with redlining. When you tell groups of people, when the federal policy says you people cannot own a home because we will not back the mortgage for it, and we're going to draw a big old line around, and this called the red line. Now, if you got any black people in this part, nobody gets a home. So let's talk about that thing since we're talking about housing. See, so after the war, after World War II, right, we had some wonderful things going on. Had the GI Bill, and like a lot of the veterans returning, they're like, wow, we need to make sure that they have, can go back to college, that they have a home. Well, but guess who got to use the GI Bill? Yeah. So when you have like 98.5% of folks using that were allowed, let me put it like that, were allowed to use the GI Bill, right, were white folks, as though black and brown folks did not fight for this country, right? Don't even let me go down that road, because I actually think that we're perhaps the most patriotic, right? The fact that we keep on loving a country that doesn't love us. Let me stop right here. Oh, gee. Okay. So here's the thing. And not only was it the individuals, y'all, so we had these big real estate companies. Mm-hmm. And so you all ever heard of a place called Levittown? 20 minutes away. You see, so that family, right, was given all of that money to build those things so that they could keep the housing for the white GI folks, the returning veterans, to keep those things between $4,000 and $8,000. Now the average for those houses, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and in some places in the country upward of millions, right? And then people dare to say, well, but hey, didn't we have like some civil rights acts and stuff, and aren't we just all, all together now? Nah. Because that kind of wealth begets wealth, right? And think about what you do when you own your own home through that many generations, right? So home, it is not just a home, a place to be, because see, this is what I can do. I can actually take out a second mortgage, and I can make sure that all of my children go to college and walk out debt-free. I can use the equity in my home to start my own business, and I don't have to go to at the family barbecue and ask everybody's uncle, second cousins on my mother's left-hand side, right? And get a hoopty kind of business, right? Yeah, you see, every single part of our lives, much of that comes from the wealth that was built through that. Now, that's not all, right? But so much of that. When do we address that, right? But see, the narrative has so demonized, right, that little word called reparations, right? Well, here's the thing. If we don't want to say that, can we say justice? Is that word still okay to say? Sometimes I get confused what I'm supposed to say and what I'm not, right? So justice would say, right, that we've still got to continue addressing all of those harms that were done, right? You keep going deeper and deeper, all of the race massacres. So here's what people don't understand. How many of you all have heard of Tulsa, the race massacre in Tulsa? There were over 100 black communities that were burned down, that were bombed. Yeah. So then folks had to start all the way over, so you had the loss of life, but also the loss of business, the loss of wealth, the loss of homes. You see, When do we get to address that, right? Got to go wider, right? All of the broken treaties for our native families, right? All the lies that were told to them as their land was being stolen and they were being marched across the country, right? So that's what we mean. We've got to broaden the conversation. Do not let them push you into just, let's look at these numbers, this disproportionality, because we're going to be circling in that forever. Broaden, widen the conversation. Keep taking it to them. Choose one thing that you want to work on repairing, right? One thing that your group wants to work on, right? And say, we're going to go wider. We're going to take it deeper, right? And doing things like the zoning reform, right? And not livable wage, but a thriving wage, right? Thinking about the real kinds of things around equitable community investment, right? Disincentivizing high-end development when there's not any need for them, right? So thinking about how do we actually broaden this conversation around housing and housing instability, okay? And so all of these systems play a role in that. Choose one, right? That you want to either partner with or to go wider with so that you can go deeper with it. Because all of these things are either enhancing, right, or taking away from our well-being and our health, right? So widen the conversation, okay? So when you think about that, right, the social determinants of health, I want you to just watch the screen. We've got education, healthcare and quality, neighborhood and built environment, social and community context, economic stability. Watch the screen. They didn't catch it, Pascale. Wait, I'm gonna go back. Wait. One more time. There we go. Okay, so you see the screen? Watch closely. Did everybody get it that time? Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're never forgetting, right, that we've got to fight for all of those things and that many of the times it's racialized. I don't want us to ever forget that, right? That we got some multiple fights on our hands, right? Because all of those are all of these. So we got some fights on our hands. And so for those didn't see it, just putting it up there. So that means that we got to do some root cause work. You see, if we're going to actually begin to pull up those structures, right, to get at all of those things that we're trying to get to around the health and our well-being, right, then we're going to have to get to the root causes. We're going to have to begin to say what's underneath them, right? And then what are our tools? What are our tools that we can use, whether they be the laws, political things, our statutes, right? Budgetary decisions, regulations, right? For every single one of those systems, right? We've got to get underneath. And so what we're asking ourselves is, how did we get here to where we are today, right? What are the root causes? And you ask why 5 times. You don't just take the first why. Well, how did we get here? Oh, well, it was because. Well, how did that get there? And how did that get there? So that you are working on multiple levels, so you keep asking the questions, right? And so that's why I was saying to you, sir, then you've got to make sure that you're holding both at once. I got to address the crisis that's right in front of me, but we got to have some of us that's working on the root causes, right? So that we stem the tide, right? So we got to do both of those things at once. So again, Pascale, I'm going to need some people to tell us what they're working on to get to some root causes of some things. We got a new one. Got to get some steps in.
Hi, everyone, again. So my name is Cynthia, for those just joining, and I am working on starting a trauma-informed wellness organization.
Wellness, trauma-informed wellness, right? Getting to the healing, yes.
Can I explain why? So, as a minority growing up in East New York, it wasn't until I went to school, because I didn't have positive role models in my community, that I didn't understand that a lot of things were learned through the natural environment, poor coping strategies in which you associate and accommodate them, and you learn how to cope based off of what's in your environment. So those things right there gave me the wrong tools, and I learned that I have maladapted to society. And now, as a mother of 2 African American young children, 16 and 12, I am relearning how to parent effectively and to give my kids the tools they need to thrive in society.
That's what I'm talking about. And I think that one of you all talked about, sometimes we got to relearn some things because of what society taught us at first, right? And so, and how do we come from a place of strength, right? Of power. And in fact, I'm going to play a little bit, if you would allow me. May I? I'm going to play a little bit with the language. I don't believe that you are a minority, and this is what I mean. You are part of a global majority. Claim your power, right? For your 2 children, right? They are part of a global majority, right? See, they keep telling us, right? That's what they want us. That's why we got the white lash that Pascale talked about, right? Because they understand what the numbers are, right? We are part of a global majority, soon to be a majority in this country. Claim your power. But thank you for sharing that. Come on, who else? What are you doing to go wider, to broaden the conversation, right? To get at some root causes of things. What if you're not doing it, what do you want to do? What are the things you've been dreaming about? If I could just have some resources or some partners, I tackle some root causes. Yes, right here.
Speaking for my organization, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convince all of our leadership that what needs to happen is every aspect of the organization's work has to have some direct contact with the DEI director, right? And actually talk about what they're doing and whether or not it's going to positively or negatively impact our DEI goals.
Hello, Brian. Hello. Can we stop thinking about, diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism as a layer that we can just add? Like saying, well, here are the French fries, and then we just put some ketchup on. Take that stuff in, right? Yes, exactly. And you just ask the questions, right? What is it doing, right? How could it be harming, or how could it be benefiting, right? Making the case is that if equity is in there, everything's gonna be better. It just is, right? Love that. Thank you. Come on, who's next?
Hi, I work for the Department of Health, and we have, together with the Learning Collaborative providers, are working on a guidance document that is going to challenge providers to ensure that they're embedding equity in their work and holding them accountable, but doing it together, right? Like finding the right measures to hold providers accountable, and they're a part of the conversation because we want to make sure it's a collaborative, not a top-down approach.
The co-creation. That's equity co-creating. How do we ensure together, right, that we're making sure that folks are getting the health care, getting the services, right? And I hope absolutely in those conversations that the providers say, absolutely, right? We want to be held accountable, and we're going to hold y'all accountable, right? To make sure that we have the resources. I love that because that's what it's about, the co-creating of that. Yes, come on, who's next? I see one up here. You get your steps in. We can do it. We can do it.
Thank Thank you. I'm on the board of an organization where we're doing DIA work to really diversify the board and the impact of what the organization doing as a trickle down. And the organization that I work for, we're really trying to create client advisory boards where folks that are impacted by the services we provide have a voice in what those services look like and the direction of the organization.
That is part of power sharing, right? Because that's making decisions. And so if we're going to have set a direction, right, as a board, we need to have folks that are most impacted sitting on the board too, right? And then making sure that they are guiding that work all the way. Because see, here's this thing, you all have all heard it, right? The folks that are most impacted are typically furthest from the power and the resources, but they're closest to the solution, right? And so absolutely, see that's going deeper and wider, right? Absolutely. Who else? Let's see another thing. Yes, right here.
Hello, my name is Nicole, and I'm working with the Bronx Foundation to help residents in the Bronx reimagine their communities. So I will be a part of a program that's going to happen in the end of July, where we're going to get residents together, give them some vision boards, some guidance on what a new Bronx could look like, and the foundation is going to bring that to fruition.
Oh, you know what? If I didn't have bad knees, I would run down. Reimagining what the community can look like, right? To say this is our community, right? What do we want to do with this, right? How do we want to change? That's what we So Pascale, let me get something. Yeah, here you go. How many folks have relatives in the South? I'm from the South. I'm from the South. You can wave her down. Yeah. Come on. That's what we do down south. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, who else?
Hello, Ebony Johnson. I am a housing supervisor back in Rochester, New York. And one of my things that I try to do and currently doing that I'm getting a little, a little pushback on. I believe in, and please do forgive me in advance, there is nothing wrong with degrees and education and enlightenment, all that, do you. But I am a strong believer in lived experience, and I would much rather see people who's been through it work with me through it. And, I think that's important. There's not enough of that, pushed. I like to, when I hire, I don't look at just your education. I have a conversation with you in interviews. Let's talk about what you've been through. How does this affect you personally? So I think those things need to be reinstated. Going back to the keynote speaker, back to love. Like, we all, we've been there. I can currently say that I've experienced pretty much all that my clients have experienced. And that's why we have a connectedness. I think we need to get back to that connectedness, even in our positions. Stop being afraid to share that humanness.
Ooh. Down Hook's toes, can we just get back to love? With that human connection? See, y'all, some of y'all, when we say love, y'all immediately think about romantic stuff, even some platonic stuff. Human to human kind of love, right? That connectedness. And then when you talk about the experiences and all, my question, but when I'm talking to people to work with or to hire, what you bring to the table. Now, see, here's the thing. I love a degree. Got a bunch of them in my back pocket. But if that's all I'm bringing, then I'm just an educated fool. So we're going to ask those questions, right? What you bringing to the table? What experiences, right, are you bringing to the table, right? What the things that you've been through that you want to make sure that's on the table? That's what I'm talking about, right? Yes, yes.
My name is Joseph Ali. I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. I went to the Bar Prison Initiative while I was in prison. I gained over 90 credits, and when I came home, I earned my bachelor's degree in public health and psychological well-being. And then the next year, I went back to get my master's degree in health education and promotion. I currently work at the Center of Alternative Sentencing and Employment Services. I'm the Associate Director of the New Start program, which is an alternative to incarceration program. During the pandemic, I took the Trump check and I started a nonprofit and a for-profit, right? So the nonprofit is called Mentors Against Drugs and Guns Through Experience, and the for-profit is called I Am Phenomenal Unlimited. And we teach people, de-escalation. We teach people healthy relationships. We teach people a lot of different things about structure and food justice and all of these different things. So that's what I'm doing.
These New York folks, I'm looking like, they out there in front of it, they got some stuff they got to say, Y'all, finally, let's go together. Let's go together. You see, cross systems, coalition building, and advocacy, right? And I highlighted this one, this multiracial ethnic culture, and I actually just did that about 3 hours ago. Because you all were probably in sessions and all, but the Supreme Court gutted affirmative action looking at race in higher education. And that thing hurt me. And I was looking at the presentation, I said, I don't want to start with that, but we got to get there. So see, here's the thing. This is what power, and hear me good now, I'm talking about like you white person here, I'm talking about white supremacy, right, as an ideology that's holding power. See, this is what it will do. It will pit, right, groups that have been marginalized against each other, right? So you're going to have some, right, a few folks in this community, right, that's going to sue and say, I couldn't get in school because those 4 black folks that have been admitted to Harvard. Y'all, we cannot allow them to pull us apart, y'all. We got to stand together. Why isn't the question, why can't we all have good educations? Right? Instead of saying, well, you took my spot, or you, that's what they want us to say and do. Right? We gotta stay together, y'all. Don't let them pull us apart. So multiracial, multi-ethnic, cultural groups, we gotta stay together. And of course, don't leave grandma at home. Yes. Gotta be multi-generational. Grandma got wisdom. Y'all be like, grandma can't even use her smartphone. Grandma's smarter than any of y'all ever thought about me. But we've got to have the wisdom of our elders, right? The ingenuity and innovation of our young folks. And then those of us that just hanging out in the middle, we just trying to get our stuff together. Right? But we've got to bring our different sectors and systems together, y'all. I know it's hard. Everybody's working hard and all, but we've got to figure out ways to touch each other, right? Because we've got to get to the place of full-on advocacy, right? And so we got to build our shared goals. We got to make sure that we're educating other folks to join us in our advocacy, right? And it's got to be both at the local and the state level, see. Think about all the times just here recently that we have gone together. It makes a difference. It changes things. It can be transformative when we go together. But if we are splintered, a voice over here, a little bit over there, that little bit may change, or that little bit may change, but there will be no systemic change. There will be no root cause change. And you see what they just did today. They literally pulled up something that had been set for decades, right? And see let me come back to this one more time. They've made affirmative action as though that this is this thing that only helps black folk, who have been the greatest benefactors. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to suggest that we go together, right? And stop splintering in these groups. And here's the thing about going together, is that, and pardon my language here, it ain't going to be no kumbaya, right? But we're going to have to call each other into accountability. And so when we see some folks sort of slipping over there getting cozy with white supremacy and power, we're going to have to call them out. Oh, I'm sorry, call them in. Because there's accountability in coalitions. So it's not going to be row, row, row your boat, okay? But we need to go together, right? And I think y'all did a little bit of that. Y'all got some stuff going on, right? I've been watching y'all out marching, right? Be like, I know you didn't just do that to us, right? And showing up for each other, that. Keep doing that. Do that in bigger numbers, right? Help to convince those folks that are a little bit afraid, right? Oh my goodness, if somebody sees me there, am I going to get fired up? They cannot fire us all. Do not allow them to weaponize our compassion, our love, our generosity. Don't do that. Show up, right? When the network calls, show up, right? Stay together on this, right? And so, because, see, here's the thing. One person cannot hold the world up, right? Although we got some real bad women that can do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying, because, we are all that and some chicken and stuff. But we can do this together. We can hold that up together, right? And so finally, what is necessary? One, don't be fooled by Maslow, y'all. Even in the beginnings, even when you're looking for your housing and all, we still need the love, the belonging, the esteem, the self-agency, right? Understand the context and conditions of things, right? Understand how we got to some places. Understand the root cause of things, right? Because if we keep trying to solve for the front part, to your point, the line will just get longer. So we need to understand the historical context of how we got to that place and then begin to solve for the root causes. And then, y'all, we're going to have some courage. Yeah, because every single time that we come together and move together in force, there will be such a backlash against us, right? But see, this is what I know, is that if there are enough of us, you can't move us. If there are enough of us, you cannot move us, right? Now, if there are just a few people, we're going back, we may even hit the ground. But if there are enough of us, and so we've got to have the courage to stand together, right? To not lead each other, to not lead just one or two folks, right? To fight the fight for us. You see, Ella Baker said, those who believe in freedom cannot rest. Now she said, those who believe, she did not say just one individual, right? So I'm gonna need y'all to take turns. So baby girl, my sister friend, when you get tired, I'm gonna need you to step in, right? So you can take your day, right? So when you get a little bit tired, I'm gonna need you to step in, right? Because the movement, right, cannot stop. We need to have the courage to stand in the gap for each other, to stand in the breach, right? That's what's necessary. So I want to leave you with this. It's sort of a cartoon, but it's saying that bring your whole selves. Bring everything you got. Bring your head, bring your heart, bring your hands, bring your feet. Give everything that you've got, because that is the only way that we're going to get to this thing we call justice, right? And so I will pause there. I don't even know if we have time for questions and answers. If not, thank you, and it's been good. But